Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're heading to South Africa,
Ooh, South Africa.
to a region that's steeped in history and sunshine and amazing wine.
Yeah.
Constantia, we're going to be learning all about it today, swirling through its unique terroir,
Okay.
from the mountains to the ocean, and getting a taste of why its wines are so sought after. And you've given me some amazing sources to dig into
Yeah, it's a really fascinating region.
that go into Constantia's past, the grape varieties,
Mm-hmm.
the winemaking secrets,
Mm.
even tips for experiencing it firsthand.
Yeah.
So,
What's really captivating about Constantia is it's not just a place that makes wine, it's a story.
oh, I like that.
It unfolds with each glass.
Yeah.
And that story starts way back in 1685.
Okay. So Constantia has a long history.
It does.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
Back when powdered wigs
Yeah.
were all the rage. What happened in 1685?
That's when Simon van der Stel, the governor of the Cape Colony, founded the region.
Ah, so Constantia was founded.
He was a visionary leader. He really saw the potential of the land for world-class grapes. And to think, just a few decades later, this place was producing wines that were enjoyed by European royalty.
Okay, so we go from colonial governor to royal toast. Pretty big jump.
Yeah.
So these weren't just any average table wines then, obviously.
Not at all.
Something special.
Constantia was celebrated for its sweet wines, especially the Vin de Constance.
Really Constance.
These luscious dessert wines. They were so highly prized that even Napoleon Bonaparte, during his exile, couldn't resist them.
Wow. Okay, imagine you're sipping the same wine as an emperor.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
I mean, if Constantia was that famous, how come we don't hear about it as much as, say, Bordeaux or Napa Valley?
Well, like any good story, there's twists and turns.
Oh, there's got to be some drama.
Yeah, in late 19th and early 20th centuries, Constantia faced some serious challenges. One was the phylloxera epidemic,
Uh-oh.
which devastated vineyards in Europe and eventually reached South Africa as well.
Phylloxera. Tiny little aphid. Yeah.
Wreaked havoc on the world's wine industry. It wasn't just the bugs, though, right?
Right. Around the same time, consumer tastes were changing, shifting away from those sweet wines and towards drier styles.
Yeah.
So those two things combined dealt a blow to Constantia.
Yeah.
For a while, it seemed like its glory was fading.
A real David and Goliath story.
Yeah.
So how did it bounce back?
Well, just as Simon van der Stel saw the potential, centuries ago,
Yeah.
a new generation of winemakers emerged.
Oh, Hulk.
They were passionate, determined to revive Constantia's reputation. They focused on quality over quantity,
Okay.
embracing innovation while respecting their heritage, and of course, they had their secret weapon, that terroir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's unpack this terroir.
Okay.
So you mentioned mountains, ocean. How do these elements create something special for Constantia wines? It's really fascinating. It's an interplay of forces. You have the Table Mountain, which looms over the region, provides shelter, and really shapes that landscape. And then you've got the cool Benguela Current sweeping up the Atlantic coast, bringing refreshing ocean breezes that warms South African sun.
So it's like the mountains are holding back the heat, and the ocean's like this giant AC.
Yes.
That must be what gives Constantia that microclimate everyone's always talking about.
Exactly. That unique microclimate slows down the grape ripening process, allows the fruit to develop those complex flavors while still retaining that acidity. That's why Constantia wines are known for their freshness and elegance.
I bet the soil plays a role too, right? I mean, it can't all be sunshine and sea breezes.
Absolutely. Constantia has incredibly diverse soil. You find decomposed granite on the slopes, adds minerality, structure to the wines, and then there's areas with rich clay soils,
Okay.
which contribute to the body and texture. It's like this puzzle, and every piece just adds to that final masterpiece.
Okay, so we got climate, we got soil, but what about the stars of the show?
Yeah.
The grapes. What grows best in Constantia?
Well, Constantia is best known for its Sauvignon Blanc and its Semillon. They thrive in that cool climate. Sauvignon Blanc in particular is very special. It's got that extra layer of complexity.
Yeah.
You'll get those zesty citrus notes that you expect. But there's also layers of passion fruit and a unique herbaceous quality that's distinctly Constantia.
I'm already picturing myself on a sunny porch sipping some Sauvignon Blanc.
Sounds nice.
But what about Semillon? What's that like?
Semillon may be less widely planted, but it produces richly textured wines. That can age beautifully. You'll often find it blended with the Sauvignon Blanc.
Okay.
It's a harmonious combination. Even on its own, Semillon offers a unique experience. Think honeydew melon, beeswax, even a hint of ginger spice.
It sounds like there's a lot more to Constantia than just Sauvignon Blanc, though.
Mm.
I see other varieties mentioned. What else grows there?
And that's what makes Constantia so interesting. It's not a one-trick pony. You'll also find Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, even Pinot Noir.
Wait, Pinot Noir in South Africa? I thought Pinot Noir was for, like, cooler climates, like Burgundy.
You would think so. But that's where the Constantia microclimate comes into play.
Right.
Those cool ocean breezes allow those Pinot Noir grapes to ripen slowly, and they develop a vibrancy and minerality that you just wouldn't find in a warmer region. Really a testament to how terroir can shape a grape's expression.
Okay. I am so much more curious about what's happening in the wineries now. What can you tell me about the winemaking process in Constantia?
Well, first and foremost, the Constantia winemakers, they're deeply committed to sustainability. They understand that the quality of their wines is directly linked to the health of their vineyards and the environment.
I mean, sustainable practices are becoming more and more common, though,
True.
across the wine world. What makes Constantia's approach unique?
What's really unique is the blend of tradition and innovation that you find here. You have many winemakers who are carrying on those practices that have been passed down for generations. But then at the same time, others are embracing these cutting-edge technologies. For example, some wineries are using concrete eggs.
Concrete eggs. I've heard of oak barrels and steel tanks. Concrete eggs.
Right. It might sound a little unusual.
It does sound a little unusual.
But these egg-shaped vessels allow for a very gentle and natural fermentation process.
Okay.
And they provide excellent temperature control, create unique textural qualities in the wine. It's a perfect example of Constantia winemakers blending the old and the new to create something truly exceptional.
Okay, so we have a picture of the land, the grapes, a little taste of the winemaking magic.
Yeah.
But what does it all taste like? Like, what can we expect when we open a bottle of Constantia wine?
Well, with Constantia wines, you're not just getting a taste.
Okay.
You're getting a whole sensory journey.
Ooh, I like that. Take the whites.
The whites are like a burst of sunshine in a glass.
Okay.
Think Sauvignon Blancs bursting with aromas of grapefruit, passion fruit, and even a hint of fresh-cut grass. And it's that vibrant acidity that makes them so refreshing.
I do love a wine that makes you feel like you're in the vineyard.
Right.
Soaking up that sunshine.
Exactly.
You mentioned Semillon earlier, and I'm wondering how that compares. Is it as bright and citrusy as the Sauvignon Blanc?
Semillon is a bit more subtle, but no less captivating. Think ripe peaches, honeydew melon, and a whisper of lanolin. It makes it so interesting is its texture. It's got this lovely weightiness. Coats your palate, makes you want to savor each sip. And when it's blended with Sauvignon Blanc, it's pure magic.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. So we've got the whites covered. But you mentioned that Constantia also produces some pretty impressive reds. Where did they fit in on this sensory journey?
The reds are all about elegance and balance. You won't find those big jammy fruit bombs here. Instead, think restrained elegance.
Okay, I'm all about restrained elegance, so what kind of flavors are we talking about?
Well, if you're looking for that classic Pinot Noir experience, Constantia won't disappoint. Aromas of cranberries, cherries, and a hint of forest floor. But what makes them so special is that underlying minerality. That comes through, like a whisper of the ocean, in every sip.
It really is amazing how that terroir comes through in all these wines. What about for someone who prefers a bit more body, a bit more structure in their reds? Does Constantia have something for them?
Absolutely. Their Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlots, their beautiful expression. Of the region's warmer slopes, think ripe blackberries, plums, hints of cedar and tobacco. But even with that bolder character, they retain a sense of elegance and balance, thanks to that cool ocean influence.
So we got refreshing whites, elegant reds, and even those legendary sweet wines. It sounds like there's a Constantia wine for every palate and every occasion. So with all this talk about terroir and grapes, which bottles should we actually be looking for on our next trip to the wine shop?
Well, if you want a taste of history, Grut Constantia is a must.
Grut Constantia.
The oldest wine estate in South Africa dates all the way back to 1685. They produce a wide range of wines, from Sauvignon Blanc to Cabernet Sauvignon, but their Vin de Constance is truly legendary.
That's a wine I'm adding to my bucket list for sure.
Is it?
But Grut Constantia is just one of many.
Right. If you're looking for something maybe a little bit more boutique, a little bit more off the beaten path, I'd recommend seeking out a bottle from Constantia Glen. They produce really exceptional wines in small batches.
Oh, I love small batch.
Yeah. The red blends in particular, think Bordeaux-style elegance.
Yeah.
but with that South African twist.
Small batches, handcrafted wines, that's my kind of discovery.
Yeah.
Constantia is not just about preserving the past, though, right?
No, no.
What about some of those wineries that are pushing boundaries, experimenting with new things? What are we looking at there?
Oh, absolutely. You've got places like Eagle's Nest. They're not afraid to experiment. They work with lesser-known grape varieties, and they really push the boundaries of winemaking techniques. They even produce a single varietal Viognier, which is pretty rare.
Okay, so while there's that deep respect for tradition, there's also that spirit of innovation. In Constantia, we talked about sustainable practices earlier, and I'm wondering how those play into this idea of innovation.
Well, it's not just about, using organic fertilizers or reducing water consumption. It's about looking at the bigger picture, finding ways to create a thriving ecosystem.
Okay.
The vineyards.
Okay.
For example, Silvermas Vineyards practices biodynamic farming.
Biodynamic farming, isn't that the one with the moon cycles and varying cow horns?
Yes, it might sound a little mystical.
Does sound a little mystical.
But biodynamic farming is all about treating the vineyard as a living organism, fostering that biodiversity, and creating a self-sustained ecosystem. And you know what? It results in some amazing wines.
I am sensing a real sense of community in Constantia, everyone working together to elevate the region. But even with the best intentions, there's always going to be challenges, right? What are some of the hurdles that Constantia winemakers are facing today?
Well, you're right. No wine region is without its challenges. And climate change is a real concern. Shifting weather patterns, the risk of droughts. But Constantia winemakers, they're not shying away from this. Many of them are experimenting with drought-resistant rootstock.
Drought-resistant rootstock, that sounds like a pretty innovative solution.
It is. It's about looking beyond those traditional grape varieties and finding solutions that are tailored to that changing climate. It's not just about surviving, though. It's about thriving. They're determined to keep producing those exceptional wines for generations to come.
You mentioned earlier, Constantia wines were once enjoyed by European royalty. It seems like they're well on their way to regaining that global recognition.
I think so. You're starting to see them pop up on wine lists in top restaurants all over the world. And as more people discover those wines and the diversity, I think the region's reputation will just continue to grow. But it's not just about the fame or accolades. It's about sharing something special.
Speaking of sharing, we talked about how versatile these wines are with food, but I'm curious about the local cuisine.
Oh, yeah.
What would you pair with traditional South African braai?
Oh, that's a fun one. So imagine we're sitting down to a braai.
Okay.
Right?
I'm picturing that smoky aroma of the grill, warm evening air.
Exactly.
What are we pouring in our glasses?
Well, if we're having boerewors, which is that spicy sausage that's a staple at any braai,
Okay.
you want a wine with enough acidity to cut through that richness. A Sauvignon Blanc would be perfect. Its zesty citrus notes complement the smoky flavors.
Okay, that's one pairing sorted. What else is on the braai menu?
Well, let's say we have some saucities, marinated lamb skewers.
Sausages, okay.
For that, you'd want a red wine with a bit more body, bit more complexity. Constantia Pinot Noir would be lovely. It's delicate red fruit and earthy notes, harmonizing with the tender lamb.
And of course, no braai is complete without some biltong.
Ah, biltong.
I've always been curious about biltong. What kind of Constantia wine would pair with that?
Biltong, that salty, savory, dried meat, is a real treat. I would go for a lighter-bodied red, like a Cinsault, or even a Pinotage, something with those bright fruit notes and a touch of spice to complement those intense flavors.
You're making it really hard to resist booking a flight to South Africa right now. So we've explored the history, the terroir, the grapes, the winemaking, the flavors, even the food pairings. But there's something about Constantia that feels like it's more than just a checklist of facts and figures. What makes it so special?
That's what makes Constantia so special. It's a region where you can truly sense the passion and the dedication of the people who make the wine.
What stands out to you as the most remarkable aspect of Constantia?
For me, it's the way they embrace both tradition and innovation. They're proud of their heritage, but they're not afraid to experiment and push those boundaries. It's that spirit that keeps Constantia at the forefront of the wine world.
And I think it's so cool how Constantia's history is still so present in the wines today. We started by talking about those sweet wines that were enjoyed by royalty like centuries ago. And now we're talking about like concrete egg fermentation. It's like a conversation between the past and the present.
And that's what makes exploring wine regions like this so rewarding.
Yeah.
You're not just tasting the wine, you're tasting the history, the culture, the passion of the people who've been tending these vines for generations.
It makes you realize that there's so much more to a bottle of wine than just the liquid inside.
Absolutely.
It's a story waiting to be told.
Exactly. And with Constantia, that story's only getting more interesting.
Okay, so let's say someone's listening to this right now, and they're thinking, I want to try Constantia wines, but where do I even begin? What advice would you give them?
I'd say the best way to start is with a classic Constantia Sauvignon Blanc. It's a great introduction to the region's style. Crisp, refreshing, bursting with those characteristic citrus and herbaceous notes.
I've heard that Constantia Sauvignon Blancs have this like minerality to them that sets them apart. What causes that?
It's that unique combination of the granite soils and that ocean influence.
Mm.
You get this subtle saline quality, adds another layer of complexity to have a taste to that sea breeze.
And if someone wanted to venture beyond Sauvignon Blanc, what would your next recommendation be?
Well, if they're looking for something with a bit more body, a bit more texture, I would steer them towards a Constantia Chardonnay. They often have these lovely notes of ripe pear and white peach. And depending on the winemaking style, you might even find hints of toasted nuts or vanilla from oak aging.
Ooh, that sounds delicious. Now, what about the reds? I know we talked about Pinot Noir, but are there any other Constantia reds that you think are particularly noteworthy?
Definitely. If someone enjoys a bolder red, I would recommend exploring Constantia's Cabernet Sauvignons. They have this beautiful structure and complexity. Aromas of blackcurrant, cassie, even cedar, and don't overlook their merlots. They tend to be a bit softer, more approachable, with notes of plum and dark chocolate.
Okay. I am adding all of these to my mental shopping list.
Good.
But before we wrap up, I gotta ask, what about those legendary sweet wines that Constantia was once so famous for? Are they still being produced today?
They are, and they're actually experiencing a bit of a renaissance right now. These sweet wines, typically made from muscat grapes, are a true taste of history. They're rich, luscious, bursting with flavors of apricot, honey, even orange peel. Perfect way to end the meal on a sweet note.
You know what strikes me about all of this is that Constantia seems to have something for everyone. Whether you prefer, like, crisp whites, elegant reds, or even those decadent sweet wines, there's a Constantia wine out there
There is.
waiting to be discovered.
I couldn't agree more. That's what makes exploring wine regions so exciting. It's all about finding those hidden gems, expanding your palate.
And speaking of expanding our horizons, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about, like, the bigger picture. We've touched on some of the challenges facing Constantia, like climate change. But what about the future? What do you think lies ahead for this really unique wine region?
I think Constantia has a very bright future ahead. You know, the winemakers are innovative, they're passionate, and they're committed to sustainability. They're constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible while staying true to their roots. I think we're going to continue to see exciting developments from this region in the years to come.
I'm curious, what kind of developments do you envision? What's next for Constantia?
Well, I think we'll see even more experimentation with grape varieties, maybe even rediscovering some long-forgotten varietals that are perfectly suited to that Constantia terroir. Or maybe we'll see some new blending techniques that create entirely new flavor profiles. Who knows?
That's exciting. It's like Constantia is a wine region that's constantly evolving, always kind of searching for that next level of excellence.
Exactly. And as the world becomes more aware of Constantia wines, I think we'll see that demand just surge. And hopefully that leads to more investment, even more innovation.
Now let's talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. Food pairings. We already touched on some South African classics, but I'm wondering if there's any unexpected or like unconventional pairings that you think would work well with Constantia wines.
Oh, there's so many possibilities. One that I find particularly intriguing is Constantia Sauvignon Blanc. With a creamy goat cheese from the region, the wine's acidity cuts through that richness of the cheese, and the herbal notes just complement the cheese's tangy flavor. It's a match made in heaven.
I love that you're highlighting local ingredients. It's a reminder that wine is so much more than just a beverage. It's a reflection of a place and its culture.
Absolutely. Another pairing that I think would be fantastic is Constantia Chardonnay with a dish that features Cape Malay spices, like a fragrant chicken curry. The wine's richness and subtle oak notes would complement that warmth and complexity of the spices beautifully.
Stop, you're making me hungry. Now, for our listeners who are eager to experience Constantia wines firsthand, what advice would you give them?
Well, if you ever have the opportunity to visit Constantia, I highly recommend you take a wine tour. It's the best way to immerse yourself. You'll get to meet those passionate winemakers, learn about their unique approaches, and of course, taste those incredible wines.
And even if a trip to South Africa isn't in the cards right now, there are still ways to experience Constantia, right?
Of course, seek out Constantia wines at your local wine shops or online retailers. Don't be afraid to ask for recommendations. Try something new. And when you open that bottle of Constantia wine, just take a moment. Appreciate its journey, from those sun-drenched vineyards to your glass.
It's all about savoring that experience and connecting with the story behind the wine. And I think that's what makes Constantia so special. It's a region that invites you to explore, to discover, and to fall in love with the art of winemaking.
Well said. I think we can both agree that Constantia is a wine region
Yeah,
that deserves to be on everyone's radar.
couldn't have put it better myself. It's been a pleasure diving deep into the world of Constantia wines
Likewise.
with you. And to our listeners, we hope you enjoyed this journey as much as we have. We encourage you to seek out these wines, ask questions, share your own discoveries with others.
Until next time, keep your glasses full
Yeah.
and your curiosity piqued.